Cool, so we're going to do a shock removal tutorial here for you today. The shock on the bike as standard, the OEM one, is an absolute abomination. It's terrible. It's rock solid, which basically means it feels like it's trying to kick you in and out of the seat as you come over any sort of bumps, lumps, any sort of potholes or anything in the road. So we would always recommend upgrading to a Wilbers shock. We've got those on both of our bikes. We fit them probably to 80%, I'd say, of the builds that we have through the workshop. And they're actually really, really easy to fit. A couple of simple tools. The Paddock stand is kind of crucial for this one. It's going to hold the weight of the bike, and also some sort of jack, like a trolley jack or scissor jack, just to hold the weight of the bike. Because obviously when you take the shock out, there's nothing supporting both sides of the bike. So on top of that, all you're going to need is a T50 bit and a Torx wrench. We use a 1/2 inch one for this because you do need to go up to 60 Newton meters when you're putting the rear wheel back on. I'm going to crack on with this. It's a simple case of taking the 5 bolts off of the rear wheel. Obviously the single-sided swing arm means that all the disc and everything stays on the swing arm. The wheel is very easy to remove and pop to one side. And then just the top and bottom bolts on the shock. Note that we have already taken the exhaust and bracket off. There are videos on our YouTube channel already to show you how to do that. So we're going to start from this point and go from there. So when you're removing the bolts and removing the wheel, firstly, little tip, stick it into first gear, because if it's in first gear, the wheel can't actually move on the final drive. Secondly, when you just take the last of the 5 bolts out, remember that it's basically just going to be hanging on the hub. So it can, or has the potential just to slip off or fall off. We don't want that to happen so you don't mess up your wheel, basically. And there we go, nice and simple. Pop that down to one side. That's what the inside of that looks like. We're going to attack the top and bottom bolts on here. One other additional tool that I sometimes use is just a screwdriver, purely because when you undo the top and bottom bolts, you might need this just to push the top bolt through. So there we go. Fortunately, and rather conveniently, it's all on the same T50 bit, both the wheels and the shocks, which is super, super handy. Just whip that out. Make sure obviously the bike is at that point supported even as you do that, because if you take the bottom bolt out, the bike might have the tendency to drop because you've basically taken all the support out for it. At that point, we would then remove this bush and just give it a nice clean up and a lubrication. So you might find these are a real pig to get out. Make a choice when you're at home. We generally always try to remove them. They might take a bit of force and you might need to put a bit of heat on them. If you're lucky enough that it just pops out like that, great. It's just when that goes back in, you want to make sure that's lubricated so it's got plenty of movement. I'm now basically going to grab the Wilbers shock, and we're just going to do everything in reverse and go through the Torx settings as we go. When it comes to fitting the rear Wilbers, we choose Wilbers because the quality is second to none. The price point is better than some of the sort of more known brands that you might get on something like a race bike. And they're sort of designed with BMW in mind. They're a massive BMW factory part, or they work with the BMW factory in a lot of parts basically. So 2 bolts, one at the top, one at the bottom. The torque setting is 56 Newton meters. We use a 1/2 inch torque wrench for those. It's basically a case of putting them back on. It's that simple really. So we tend to get the T50 bolt on the shock, pop it into the top. The frame has basically got a thread on the other side of this. It's effectively captive, so that can just go in and be done up. Whiz that in there hand tight in order to hold it in place. Now, if you're going for a Wilbers shock that has got some extra or less height on it, because they do both options, what you just need to do is, with your engine stand at that point, just bring the bike up or down. If you're fitting a standard shock, eye to eye height will be exactly the same, and this should just slide straight in. Again, same tool. In we go. Hand tight to start off with. Wilbers do a different colour range as well. So generally speaking, you go for black or blue spring, silver or black on the strut. A couple of the colour options are slightly different price. They are infinitely better in our opinion because they just smooth the road out. I don't know well, the standard rear shock isn't particularly good. I don't know what the roads are like where you guys are. Around here you get a lot of that sort of almost pitting in the surface, so it's not big potholes, it's just pitting. So when you're going over those or tram lines, you'll just sort of like, you'll be all over the road as you're trying to go through. Fitting one of the Wilbers shocks just allows it to sort of like float over the top. And I know we wax lyrical over these quite a lot, and I know sometimes if you sell a product, it can sound a little bit less genuine maybe, but I don't know, if you were to do a quick whiz round of all the bikes that we've got here at the moment, we had 7 or 8 bikes in here the other day, and 7 of them had Wilbers shocks on them. If you look at our Google feedback and ratings and such, most of the positive ratings in there are people who have come to us and upgraded the shocks, so that sort of speaks for itself really. So 56 Newton meters on the torque wrench. Once we've done this bit and got the shock in and we're happy, all we need to do is just pop the rear wheel on. With the rear wheel, again, you're looking at the same T50 torque setting. And we'll get to that once these ones are all good to go. There we go, we're in. Next up, I've just popped these in here to placehold them whilst we're doing all the other work on the bike. Taking the airbox out. Airbox removal video will be going up on our YouTube channel too. That's one of our most popular mods, if not the most common mod we get asked questions about. So buzz that on there, find the wheel. Just done a runner. So when you're popping these in, what you kind of want to do is, this hub here, you can just see there's this slight cutout here. That will sit on the hub here and just sort of hold it in place for you. It won't hold it in place to the point where you can just sort of let go and let it sit on itself. What it will do is just allow you to be able to line those holes up if you hold it tight. One in there. Once you've got one bolt in, like that, you can basically spend a little bit of time popping the others. Once you have one in tight by hand, the wheel will sit there. When you come to do the wheel up, 60 Newton meters to torque, using the same torque setting, torque wrench, sorry, as the rear shock. And you want to do them up in a diagonal pattern. So if I just show you on here, you want to tighten one here, and then you go diagonally, 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 diagonally. So basically it pulls it on nice and evenly. You don't want to go round in a circle because that can pull it out of shape. So just check this is on 56, sorry, on 60. There we go. So start in one corner, doesn't matter which one. Put it into gear, that'll stop it from moving around. That's one. Diagonally, back diagonally to the other corner. Diagonally again. It's like a star shape, basically. There you go. Personally, I like to just double check everything a second time. And away we go. That's fitting a rear shock. Check out the Wilbers product page on the website, piercitycustom.com. Different colours, different height variations. Adding a little bit of extra height is going to pitch you further forward. It's going to improve the handling on the bike as well. So we always kind of recommend the higher you can go with the rear shock, the better. Other than that, just go for it. It's a no-brainer for us. If you gave me a bike and a £500 budget and said, what cool mods are you going to do on the bike? I'd pretty much choose one rear shock and that would be it, if that's all I could do for that sort of budget. Yeah, get out and get riding and enjoy it.